Hey there, kids, it's me, Mr. Creepypasta, and not a robotic MCP that could be running a 24-hour Halloween livestream right now in MCP's voice. It's the first day of Halloween in a 31-day month of spooks and spoops. I hope everyone's ready for a few new things that are on their way. First off, there's new things on the Mr. Creepypasta Amino app, including MCP adorable stickers everyone should check out. If you use the app, all these bad boys should spice up any chat room. Next is the Halloween horror radio that's running CreepyPasta stories 24/7. And being hosted by Billy the Skeleton in the chat room. Another fine real person, and not a machine, that could potentially take over both the planet and the homes of the human race. Finally, there's going to be some exclusive t-shirts that are available as of October on Mr. Creepypasta's Storytime. You can find at the description down below. Whew. And all of this is brand new just for October. Who knew the month could get so exciting? I thought it was just going to be Halloween. Oh, and that's not even mentioning the 13-day countdown to the big holiday, starting on the 18th. Boy, oh boy, am I excited. Oh, see my mask? I needed to be able to start filming a few things.
So, how are you guys doing? You guys ready to hear some real spooky spoops? Yeah. Spooky senpai. Here's the thing, guys. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be telling you, let's see. I've been coming to Japan, I want to say, how many is it? 5 years? 4 years now? 4 years? So this is my hometown convention. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. And this is, thank you. I always love coming to this con, and I'm really thankful that San Japan lets me keep doing this like every year. It's always lets me come to do Storytime. Have you guys, who here has been to Storytime before? Yes, everybody keeps coming back. That's good. I haven't scared you guys away yet, which is actually a really good thing for me. So, they'll never scare you away? We'll see. I got a whole bunch of stories. If you guys have come in the past years, you know sometimes I end up doing like the same stories over and over again. But this time, I actually was working with Myuuji to make sure that we were doing brand new stuff. We got a whole bunch of new spooky stories, a couple of fan favorites I know that you guys have been liking on the channel recently. Have you guys ever seen a story I do on the channel? It was a couple months ago called Tales from the Gas Station. Has anybody seen that one? Pretty cool. A couple of those things that are going to be lined up that are going to be really cool. Make more. I can't just make them appear. No. Fun fact, Gas Station Jack, the guy who writes Tales from the Gas Station, though, he is working on a book, so that book is going to be coming out soon. You good? Just about to say that it's all good, and then suddenly... One second.
Hello? Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Give me a second.
Yeah, no problem. I have to set up my own personal Wi-Fi hotspot, so that works out. And then, like as per usual, I've got I always open up with the scariest story that I've ever told. Everybody knows that, right? If you guys have been over here before, I always have the scariest story that I've ever told, except this is a completely different story that I've ever told, but it's still the scariest. But, I'm good at stalling for time, no worries. Wonderful at stalling for time. Did I ever tell you guys I used to work at a bank? This old woman walked in, asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her over. It's okay, her check bounced. No, okay. Weird. Okay. Oh, hey. It's back there now. That's cool looking. Okay, the scariest story I've ever told. Everybody, put on your brown pants. This is the story of a day where there was all this blood. A man was walking around and blood started coming out of him everywhere. There was so much blood that it filled up an elevator. He went to the store and there was just blood all over the place. People were slipping in it and they were all grossed out. He tried to go swimming and all the sharks went nuts and bitten everybody. He got chased by all the vampires ever. One time, the blood got a kid and a dog. At the end of the day, everyone decided that they would send him to space so that he would stop getting blood everywhere. And the scariest part is that man was you. Or he was a lady if you're a lady. And you forgot that ever happened. That's terrifying, right? That was terrifying. That was the scariest story you guys ever heard, right? You guys have been coming for years. There's never a story you've heard that was scarier than that. Yes.
Hanging, right?
No. I'm changing it up on Let's do unsolved stories. I love doing this. I change stuff up on him. He panics. It's wonderful.
Like last minute, you know? Last second.
Last second.
We were talking behind stage. Oh, I have 2 more stories. Wait, I didn't prepare these. And now I was like, okay, I know the next story. And he's like, no, I changed again. All right.
Are you ready? Okay.
Yes. Oh, wait, nope.
Okay. Have you guys ever...
That was for the original story you were
Okay,
supposed
cool.
to read. But wait.
Did you guys ever see there was the show came out on Sci-Fi, I think like a year or so ago. It's called Channel Zero. It's a CreepyPasta. Yeah, okay, cool people like that one. There was the 3rd season, I think it was the last season that came out. It was called The Cannibals. It was based off of a CreepyPasta story about stairs in the woods. Anybody like that one? Yes, Queen. I've got something from that right here for you. This is my favorite time of year. It's not quite spring or winter, it's somewhere in between. It's too wet to camp, too dry to ski. People stay inside, and I'm always grateful for that. I've had a lot of people express concern about outdoor sports. It's a fair question. Are we really safe out there? They want advice. How do they keep their loved ones safe? And I tell them I don't know. How do they avoid the stairs, right? I don't know. And I really don't. It's frustrating to have nothing to offer. If I have to keep everyone safe, I've solved that arguably one of the biggest problems that's in the entire country. The only thing I can stress about what anyone else does is don't go alone, carry a GPS locator, a phone, and be prepared for anything. There's a pattern for this kind of thing. There's not one that I can be able to point out, though. There's commonalities, sure. But everyone's experiences are different. This winter, it was quiet, mostly. But sometimes we're so overwhelmed that it's all we can do but tread water. These are some of the things that I've dealt with in the past. A buddy of mine up at Crater Lake remembers the disappearance of a young man about 20 years ago. Never found this past winter. My friend had called me for advice on a new, eerily similar Jack B. and his wife, 2 children. They went snowboarding on a very, very well-marked trail. He was in the lead, the wife was behind. That's what we know. The wife said that he crested a small hill, and then she lost sight of him. Less than a second. And in that time, he fell off the face of the earth. His tracks ended in the middle of the trail. There was nowhere for the man to go, and yet, in a literal blink of an eye, he had gone. I've been searching for him again now that the snowpack has melted, but I'm sure they won't find him. The area is wrong. Something about the way the wind sounds. About 4 years ago, a new recruit came into the pack to do an internship with one of those senior rangers. He was a real nice kid, but his name was Darren, I think. He actually got really lucky, timing-wise. The lady had a diabetic crash. We had to go help her get out of the tricky area. Darren was so hyped up about it, and he's one of those guys that, is just going to do great, He's friendly, loves his job, he's everything you look for in a ranger, but Darren had a problem with listening because he believed that the Lord would save him from any kind of danger. Darren didn't believe that what we'd seen was anything to be frightened of. And the only parts of Darren that we found 2 years after he vanished during a routine trail walk was a 1/4-inch thick slice of his left thigh and the cap of his skull. Very early on in my career, I used to have a thing with kids who vanished. It broke me up really bad, right? I was always the first guy to volunteer. I couldn't stand the thoughts of another kid growing up alone with that kind of burden on them. That invisible second life, and I had a very good track record. I had this kind of sense that almost always led me to the right direction, so I started getting calls out of the other parks to help in search and rescue groups. One of the ones that I brought back was a little girl who was skiing up at a popular resort that I was familiar with. I still remember her name, actually. It was Anna. Her dad, John, was a ski patrol. I'd met him a few times. He was absolutely wrecked by the whole thing. It was a familiar story. He'd been watching her ski down one of the easier slumps and followed along behind, and he lost sight of her for just a second, and poof, she was gone. Now, I happened to be in the area during the time, so of course I went to help him out. And by that point, she'd only been gone maybe half the day, so I was confident that we'd be able to find her and get her back by nightfall. We split up to cover the ground, and I went into the area that I'd known as full of really large boulders and cliff faces. And sometimes you find these kids in places like that, right? It was unbelievably eerie that day. The sky was totally overcast by smoke from a freak fire up north that turned everything a really strange orange color. It was dead quiet, too, like the animals didn't know if they should be awake or asleep. Something about the light made shadows look wrong. They weren't in the right place. Probably a trick of the light, but it was very disorienting. Now, by pure luck, I found her tucked into a tiny little crevice at the foot of a big boulder. I got her out. It was almost like she'd been down there trying to lodge herself to safety. They took her to be examined. There wasn't anything in her system. She hadn't been harmed. But oddly, though, she appeared to be suffering from severe dehydration. She lost almost 3 pounds. She was only gone for a few hours. None of it made sense. It was so bizarre that everything basically got swept under the rug in favor of cheerful stories of her return. I reconnected with John a few weeks later to see just how he was doing. First night back, he said that she woke up shrieking in the middle of the night. He couldn't comfort her. She kept saying that she didn't want to go back to the orange place. He got her to sleep, and by the next morning, not only did she have no memory of the dream, she had no memory of the event at all. He politely asked that I not call again, and I obliged. I do think about her a lot, though, and I wonder if she remembers that. Another time, my boss woke me up in the middle of the night one summer and had me run out to a campground, one at the edge of the park. He said a woman had called him absolutely frantic, insisting that there was some kind of large animal outside of her tent. Now, the cops were on their way, but I got there faster. I grabbed my personal gun and headed out there to see what was going on. She'd set up a camp in a pretty isolated area, so I had to park the truck and walk out her way. On my way there, this smell started to become first noticeable and then almost suffocating. It was something very primal, musky, angry. It set my teeth on edge. I had my gun ready. Nothing in the forest was moving, so whatever it was predatory. We didn't have bears up here, but it's not to say that one couldn't have somehow wandered down there from up north. I got closer to her tent, and I could see how badly this thing had torn up her camp. Her stove had been thrown into the trees, almost 20 feet. The fire had been stomped out, the coals scattered. One side of her tent was shoved in, and I could see the outline of her inside. I called out, and as I did, something on the other side of the tent moved. I froze. In the weak light coming out from her tent, all I could make out was a huge, bulky shape and two tiny white pinpoints where no head should have been. She started to come out of her tent. I told her to stop. The thing made a loud cuffing noise and then suddenly seemed to dissolve or melt into the ground. I fired around into the trees where it had been, but it was gone. I examined the ground and only traces of it. A slight singeing in the dirt. It's not the first time that I've seen that thing either, but it's the closest I've ever been, or that I've ever wanted to be. But I saw it for the first time outside of my house in the middle of summer. It was very late, and I couldn't sleep. I was thinking of a little boy who'd gone missing. We hadn't found anything for him except for a Power Ranger shoe, and I was at the back door staring out over my backyard. I was exhausted, on the edge of passing out, but I felt guilty. I didn't deserve rest while that boy was out there, and I was staring at nothing, but when something moved at the edge of the lawn, I noticed it, and I focused my eyes. It looked like a very tall deer. I watched it closely. It didn't move. I couldn't tell if it could see me. It bent down, and I grabbed my binoculars for a better look. And when I looked up, it was pressed up against the glass. It covered over 100 feet in less than 2 seconds. It was all black, covered in disgusting, rotten-looking fur, and in the middle of its chest were two tiny white eyes. It was looking right at me. It wanted me to open up the door. It wanted me to come closer. I broke away. I ran to the bedroom. I locked myself in a place where there was no windows. I heard it tapping on the glass until the sun came up. Sometimes it asked me in my own voice to let it in. And I didn't. Not that time, anyway. That's a lost search and rescue story by Search and Rescue Woods. Yeah, that's spooky stuff. Dude, so a bunch of you guys, I know, like, there's not a whole lot of seats that are like in the middle of the room, and a bunch of you guys are laying out, you're relaxing and doing stuff like that. I get a lot of the times that I will, a lot of people like to listen to stories or listen to creepypastas as they're falling asleep. If you guys want to lay down, you want to close your eyes, want to fall asleep, I don't care. Like, honestly, I'm kind of glad that I just get a chance to entertain you guys. And if you want to listen to stories and lay out and relax, feel free. That is why there is so much open space. These are your bedtime stories? I mean, it's strange. But if that's what makes you happy. This world, the chaos realm now.
All right.
Yeah. You guys like Tales from the Gas Station? Do you guys like Jack? Jack quickly became like one of my favorite authors, I think. Still need more. I learned something pretty interesting today. Apparently, hanging upside down for too long can be fatal. I won't go into everything that led to the moment of this discovery because most of it isn't that important. But believe me when I say it was weird and stupid and involved thousands of leeches. We were suspended by rusty chains wrapped tightly around our bottom halves, some 10 or so feet off the floor in a mysterious underground building that had somehow gone unnoticed for decades in the forest next to the gas station where I work. It was cold and damp, and our only light source was the trio of burning barrels organized in a triangle around us, and I'm pretty sure this place wasn't ventilating all the smoke properly. I was annoyed, but at least I had my coworker Jerry there, hanging next to me, volunteering as a distraction from the situation at hand. To pass the time, he showed off his impressive repertoire of show tunes and told awful dad jokes, despite my repeated requests for him to stop. Around the 2 or 3 hour mark, our captor came back to check and see how we were doing, or maybe he was there to taunt us. I don't really know. His motivations were unclear. At first, when I heard the metal door scrape open, I was relieved. We were finally getting this show on the road. See, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but this is only so many times that I can hear Jerry ask if that joke had gone under my head. He walked into the room slowly, one deliberate step after the other. And I'm pretty sure he had like a theme song playing in his mind, and he probably thought he looked way cooler than he actually did. He was wearing cargo pants and a black leather jacket and an apron spattered with blood. In one hand, he held a machete, in the other, an oversized hook, and on his face, he wore the stupidest looking mask that I had ever seen. Like some kind of nightmare Bugs Bunny with black fur, sharpened buck teeth, and pointy, elongated ears that scraped the top of the door frame as he entered. He pointed the machete right at me, and he said something. What? What is he saying? I have no idea. The man in the mask made a muffled scream and then shook his weapons at us. Dude, take the mask off, Jerry said. Yeah, we know it's you, Bo. We're not idiots. You smell like Axe body spray and you've been chasing the gas station for a week now. His name was Bo Cavillion. He had been a huge jerk for as long as I'd known him. We met him back in elementary school and established on day one that we weren't ever going to be friends. He wasn't the first person I'd have ever expected to resort to kidnapping and torture, but I wasn't all that surprised at this development either. See, it would be generous for me to say that Bo was a product of his upbringing. I mean, sure, he came from a stupid, angry family in a stupid, angry town, and one might attempt to say he was never much of a chance of breaking that cycle. But I feel like maybe that letting Bo off the hook might be a little too easy on him. My memory of Bo growing up revolved around him being that edgy, too cool for school kid. And shortly after that, he literally became the too dumb for school kid and got kicked out because of his grades and chronic truancy. He tried to sue the school, but I never heard about the case. See, I didn't keep up with him, except for that I overheard at the gas station that he was stupid and angry and blaming everyone else for everything, from his multiple DWIs to sudden and inexplicable weight gain. Bo was always pretty husky, but these days he was about 4 feet tall, laying flat on his back, which was one reason why it was so pointless for him to wear a mask. When we first noticed Bo hanging out at the gas station, I assumed he was just planning on robbing us. He was never anything even remotely clever, but the level of suspicion that he was behaving on was on the verge of comical. Wearing a hat and a trench coat, parking his truck at the edge of the lot, squinting to see if we had any security cameras anywhere in the building, coming twice a day and never buying anything. And then last Friday, he tried to talk up the female cashier while they were alone. I'm pretty sure that he was being seductive, or at least he thought he was being seductive, but that's the power of self-delusion for you right there, folks. Rosa told me all about it after I came to take over for the safe. He asked if we had any hidden weapons in the store because if I needed it, he would be more than happy to stick around and offer me his protection. Well, I said, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? Did he open with that? Well, he started by being super creepy and asking me about where I was from and how long I worked here, yada, yada, and then he asked if I was alone. Why would he think that would be okay to ask? What'd you tell him? I said that you and Jerry and Mac were in the back room rotating the inventory. Wait a second, who's Mac? He was the guy that I made up to tell Bo. Mac is an ex-Marine with impulse control problems. He's just trying to do the right thing by his ex-wife since they let him out of the slammer where he did time for a crime that he didn't commit. All he wants to be is part of his kids' lives to make some extra cash here and there at the gas station while he takes night classes to get his MBA. But an old acquaintance from his days in the service come back in his life suddenly and inexplicably, pulling Mac down a dark rabbit hole that will challenge everything he stands for. Anyway, I think we should call the police. Okay, yeah, there's really not much that they can be able to do until he actually breaks the law. Well, we could put a gun under the counter, Do you have any idea how ridiculous it is that we don't keep a stash of weapons here at this gas station? Fine, I'll think about it. And I did think about it. I really did. And I even came to the conclusion that Rosa was right. We should start arming ourselves just in case. But then I got lazy and started reading a book, and then I forgot all about it. And then, last night, I came to take over for Jerry and start my own overnight shift, but he wasn't there. Instead of Jerry, I found this fat dummy holding a machete and a gun, wearing a silly rabbit mask and forcing me into the back cab of his truck. Then he drove me out to the woods, down an old dirt road to a giant metal bunker, walked me inside down a concrete hallway coated in dirt and graffiti, past rooms half filled with stagnant rainwater, past giant metal silos and crumbling columns and metal beams, and finally into this huge empty room where he tied me up in chains and hoisted me to the ceiling next to Jerry. And that's how we got here. Between knock-knock jokes and Jerry's terrible a cappella renditions of Broadway hits, we wondered out loud what Beau's endgame was. The room had placed us in a contained giant pentagram, freshly painted on the wall with a ladder, brush, and an open can of Sharon Williams sitting next to it. And after that, I surmised that all the blood on Beau's apron was actually just paint. The best theory that we can come up with was that he'd just gone off the deep end and was planning to sacrifice us to the devil. Turns out, we weren't that far off. Beau finally took off the mask, revealing the look of annoyance on his chubby, round face. You shit sticks don't know what kind of hurt you're in for, do you? A moment passed. Oh, wait, were you waiting for an answer? I'm sorry, I thought that was a rhetorical question. You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, you know what? You aren't. Oh, come on. He's back again.
Sorry about that.
Luigi's always welcome, my man. Come on, Beau, I said. Just let us down from here. We could pretend this whole thing never happened. No, we won't, interjected Jerry. As soon as you let me down, I swear I'm headed straight to the sheriff's station to hand your ass in, and there's nothing you can do to stop me or change my mind. I cut my eyes at him and muttered a quiet, "Shut up." Something must have clicked in his head because Jerry started to backtrack. Oh, yeah. You're right. Never mind, Beau. I forgive you. Now let us down. Or else. Beau let out a forced laugh that didn't sound even remotely convincing, and then said, "You're staying here for the rest of eternity. This is where you'll die. Did you know that the Chinese used to use death hangs from upside down as their most feared form of torture?" Again, I caught myself waiting for him to continue, only to realize he was actually asking us a question. No, I didn't. Let me explain to you the different stages of pain you will go through before death. First, you'll feel your lungs slowly being crushed under the weight of your own organs until the very act of breathing becomes nearly impossible. Then your heart will overload from the extra work of pumping your blood all the way to your toes and back. Then the vessels of your eyes will rupture. You'll go permanently blind as you struggle for each breath. And then, after you finally died, I will bleed you dry and leave your bodies down here to rot. I'm not a doctor. That didn't sound right. However, I wasn't about to tell Beau that. He liked his torture game, apparently. "Hey!" Beau yelled, pointing the machete at the guy hanging to the other side of Jerry. "What's going on with that one?" By that one, he was referring to Mel, the new part-timer that Jerry had been training with while Beau came in earlier to kidnap him. It was only his first day, and the poor guy was already in this secret underground torture chamber. Jerry answered, "Oh, yeah, he passed out, right off the bat. We've been trying to wake him up, but his lights are out hard. Hey, Mel, wake up. You're missing the villain monologue." Jerry swung an arm at Mel, but he was all suspended out of reach of one another. "Is that guy dead already?" asked Beau. I studied Mel for a moment, and I couldn't see any breathing or signs of life. "Yeah," I said. "I think he is." "Wow!
I did it! I took my first life, now I know how it feels. The power. It's amazing. It's something you pathetic sheep will never feel. You'll never know the power of snuffing out another person's very existence.
Jerry chuckled. Okay, dude.
Oh, this is it. I have everything I need. Do you idiots want to guess what's about to happen next?
Oh, no.
Now, I have what I need to summon forth the beast, Kerrigan. He is an eternal being from another world, stronger than you could ever fathom. I've given him everything he needs to enter our realm, except for the final ingredient, the blood of a man in tortured anguish.
Bo went to the center of where the chains were all connected to an old crank device and turned the wheel until Mel's body would lower all the way to the floor. Then he unhooked Mel's chains, listened to his heartbeat. I mean, he probably should have done those in the opposite order, and dragged Mel across the floor to the spot in the center of the pentagram. Hey, dude, Jerry whispered to me. When we get out of this, I think we should seriously reconsider buying a gun or something for the store. Bo got down on his hands and knees and fished a large pocket knife out of his cargo pants. He flicked it open, and he kissed it.
You losers are about to see something you're not even worthy to behold. The gates of hell will open and you'll literally be in the presence of the Dark Lord Kerrigan. Tell me, have either of you actually seen a god before?
Yeah? I looked over at Jerry. Wait, really? When did you see a god? Oh, it was back when you were in the hospital for a few days getting your leg thing taken care of. There was this bat god named Plabu or something. He was trapped in a small universe thing inside a bottle of Strega liquor. Of course, I was on a lot of mushrooms at the time. I might have imagined that. What about you? I answered, you remember that time we all escaped that zombie nudist, then went underground into a cavern and we got separated by those giant hands that burst out of the walls? Well, yeah, I got sucked into this throne room by 3 tree gods, and he turned out to be pretty cool, though. Of course, I was on like a lot of painkillers at the time, so I might have imagined that too. Man, our lives are weird.
Hey!
Bo yelled.
I'm being serious here. This is real, and you're about to see for yourselves. Watch.
The 2 hands around the hilt tightened, and he plunged the knife into Mel's chest. Mel's eyes shot open, and he screamed and bolted for the door. Oh, God. It worked, Jared yelled. Mel's a zombie! Mel screamed again, looked at the weapon sticking out of his chest. Mel, go get help, I yelled. Bo struggled to get his fat ass to his feet, but Mel turned around, punched him in the face, and darted to the door and down the hallway. Get back here! Bo screamed as he threw his hook at the escaping victim. It clanged against the wall several feet from the door and fell to the ground, and Bo huffed and ran after him. A few minutes later, Bo came back into the room with his head hung low, his eyes red and watery, and a snotty bit of blood flowing messily from his nostrils. Looked like the punch may have broken Bo's nose, and as pathetic as he looked, I couldn't possibly but feel sorry for him. It's all your fault, he growled at us. Yeah, how do you figure? You lied to me. You tricked me into believing Mel was actually dead. Jerry snapped his fingers and smiled. Bitch, got that perspective complex. You're the one that brought us down here to torture us to death. You don't get to cry over how we weren't nice to you. I'm gonna kill you. Yeah? So you said, Jerry taunted back. Bo wiped the bloody nose that he had onto his sleeve and flung it to the ground. Then he screamed again, you have no idea how powerful I'm gonna be. You're gonna learn your place. You're gonna respect me, and when I'm done, He stopped mid-sentence. His face was pale, and then he turned and looked at his blood spatter on the floor, and then at the pentagram on the wall. What? He stammered. To nobody in particular. Jerry gave me a look and said, this dude is 4 parts sides of a short square, you know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah, of course. So, you want to let us down now or what? Bo looked at me with a giant ugly smile and asked, do you guys hear that too? Hear what? That voice.
He's right there. Bo pointed at the pentagram. He can hear me. He's telling me I've done well. The blood was good, my blood. He just needs more. Of course, all he needs is to come forth and to me and make me the ultimate sacrifice. Bo picked up his machete with his right hand and held it to his left wrist, and then closed his eyes and took a deep breath. This is it. This is why he chose me to summon Kerrigan, because he knew when the time came I would have the strength to do what's necessary. Who chose you for what? I asked. I'm lost. Yeah, Jerry said. Me too, I really wasn't paying attention. Was Mel a zombie or what? Bo opened his eyes, forcing another fake laugh, and said, there was a man in town, I never got his name, but I didn't have to. He found me, he offered me a job, he gave me purpose, and now I'm part of something greater than myself. All he asked was that I summon Kerrigan into this world. It's all part of the great plan, and soon I'll be finished. It is an honor to be able to give my life for Kerrigan to rise. He closed his eyes, and he lifted the machete, and then put it slowly back to his skin. And then we waited for like 30 seconds. Eventually, Jerry's voice crept into the silence. Yes, do it. Let the darkness be your strength. Let the anger guide you. Dude, I said, quit it. You're gonna mess him up. Bo threw the weapon to the ground and screamed again. You bitches have no idea what it's like, how hard I had to struggle. I got my entire life putting up with these shit stains like you, trying to keep me down. I'm sick and tired of it. Soon, Kerrigan will rise, and all the people will make this life worse. All you people will be exactly what you deserve. And I had actually forgotten that he still had a gun until that moment, when he pulled it out of the waistband of his cargo pants and said, this is what real strength looks like. And he put it into his mouth. I closed my eyes and I braced for the noise. This is gonna be super gross. And I really didn't care to watch. And after a few seconds, he didn't pull the trigger. And I opened one eye to see that he was frozen there with a gun in his mouth. Hey man, I got an idea, Jerry said. You're clearly having trouble riding that struggle bus over there. Why don't you let me down from here? Give me the gun, I'll kill you. Yeah? Right? Sound good? You want to die, I want to kill you. It's a win-win. Bo pulled the gun from his mouth with the sound of a wet plop and spat on the ground. You don't have what it takes to kill somebody. No, really. I think I totally got a hard-on for for homicide here. Just ask Jack. Yeah, it's true, I said. Before he worked at the gas station, Jerry was the only surviving member of a murder cult. Bo walked angrily over to the crank wheel and started lowering Jerry to the ground. Oh wait, holy shit, is this actually working? Bo took the chains off Jerry and tossed the gun next to him. Then he held the machete like a baseball bat right underneath me and said, okay, asshole, here's the deal. You can back out now. If you don't spill my blood and open the portal, I'm gonna kill your friend, and bang! Jerry didn't hesitate for 1 second to shoot. Bo screamed and flopped onto the ground, hugging the foot with a fresh bullet hole. Then Jerry fished the pack of smokes out of his pocket and lit one up and took a puff. Yeah, dude, I said, you wanna let me down? But before he could answer, the fire from the burning barrels started flaring up, roaring, growling. Before we knew what was happening, they had formed a giant cyclone of burning red and blue, blazing swirls and climbing to the ceiling. In the heat of the fires that swept over me, I saw a crystal sparking light in the center of the pentagram, growing from the size of a pinprick into an enormous swirling vortex of pure shimmering lights. Well, check that out, Jerry said. Bo started frantically laughing, and I think that he was just about to give us a smug, I told you so. But before he could, an enormous skeletal hand reached out from the void and grabbed him around the waist. I couldn't describe what this hand looked like because I don't think the entity it belonged to was part of this world or our understanding of physics. It was at the exact time the size of a normal human hand and the size of Manhattan Island. It was a color that had never existed
It had 5 fingers, and each fingertip split into 5 more fingers, which broke into 5 fingers, which broke into 5 more ad infinitum. It somehow could hear this creature's arm moving with my eyes, and the smell of its flesh was very similar to gumdrops. Bo let out a gasp as the infinite fingers squeezed around him, and the arm dragged him slowly through a swirling void. Oh no, Jerry yelled. That asshole still had my wallet. Jerry! I yelled to get his attention. When he looked back at me, I pointed at the spot on the ground where the dumbass Bo footprints had still formed a pool of blood. You have to figure out a way to close the portal. Jerry lit his cigarette between his lips, unzipped his fly, and started peeing into the pool of blood. And amazingly, it worked. A noise like the crack of thunder filled the room, and the portal disappeared, along with the lights as the fires from the burning barrels immediately extinguished themselves. In the darkness, all I could hear was the sound of Jerry peeing on the floor. After a while, he finished up and said, "Oh, well, that's a relief. Man, I gotta tell you, I've been holding that ever since they kidnapped us." Is he gonna let me down or what? Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm on it. It took about 10 minutes to find which wheel in the dark and lower me to the ground. By the time we got the chains off, we could hear the sirens growing louder in the distance. The deputy took our statements, then balled them up and threw them away and told us to try again. Our second version of the events left out the part where an evil being reached into the void and grabbed Bo and dragged him into a hell dimension. She informed us that the building was some kind of satellite power plant from the 50s. The place was shut down and demolished, but they forgot the basement level, and after a few years, nature reclaimed it. From the looks of things, Bo had been living out here by himself. Officially, he was a lone gunman, a single maniac. With him gone, he had nothing to worry about. Unofficially, we were all a little on edge about who hired him to summon a demon. Maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't, and either way, we need to find somebody to replace Mel, because something tells me he isn't going to be coming back to work. In other news, I learned that the carnival's coming back to town soon, and that's pretty exciting. Signed, Jack, from the gas station. That's really good. 9:45, we got, let's try the Starbridge. The Starbridge, Jack. So, I want to try, I'm married. I'm going to go ahead and do one, because I know that one is really comical, and I absolutely do love playing Jack from the gas station. Like, he's one of my favorite characters I've ever got a chance to play. So I wanted to give you guys one more that's a little bit more serious, a little bit more dramatic, and one that hopefully will give you guys something to think about and some nightmares later on tonight. Eric shot himself in the head on April 24th, 2016. I was sitting beside him. I still have the blood stains on my clothes and the blood-stained memories. "You need to understand, Alex," he explained, holding the gun to his temple. "There's a bridge. It's right here." He shook the gun as if to signify its new status, not as a weapon, but as a means of traversal. "Don't, Eric." My voice was slow and calm, but flicks of panic were doubtlessly present in its timbre. "I see it now. In flashes, whenever I imagine pulling the trigger, I get a glimpse of the bridge ahead. It's not black, it's not empty, it's bright, and it's full and warm with everything I'd imagined." Machinery whirred around us, an omnipresent hum of energy filled the room as countless megajoules of electricity filled capacity cylinders, all ready to discharge at a specific time. "And what if you're wrong?" I asked. "What then? You're just dead, and you're worthless when you're dead. All that potential is gone." The continuation of life affirms worthlessness. My worth is in what I've seen. My worth is in what happens next. Because if I'm right, and I know I'm right, everyone will learn that what we are right now is just the first stage. Once that gets out, we can all go through and go on. But by that you mean that everyone can just die? Are you listening to yourself? He gripped the gun tighter and grinned. Maybe it sounds crazy, but I see it. And I think you're about to. Eric swung the gun towards me, his finger on the trigger. I gasped. Instantaneously, the humming and whirring grew deafening. Something shimmered in my vision, as if those floating remnants of my eyes had coalesced into one point on the other side of the room. What? Eric grinned and lowered the gun. You saw it, didn't you? As the gun went down, so too did the vision. The sound drifted back to its previous levels. What was that? I'd give up trying to sound calm. The fear and confusion in my voice was obvious. I was shaking. You did see it, Eric said. Matter-of-factly, he put the gun back to his head and gestured with his left hand at all the machinery surrounding us. All of the machinery he'd built in the 2 years since I'd left him. It was as if he was reading my thoughts. You walking out on me was a turning part of my life, Alex. You got me to see myself as the failure that I was. It was that shock that allowed me to see my sights on something greater than there was just me, something greater than all of us. Eric, I don't mean to hurt you, but you didn't. You couldn't. You woke me. With a gun in a vice grip and his strides long and proud, he toured the cavernous warehouse, pointing out various components. This is the generator. It's a prototype from Singapore that I traded my fortune to get. Those bubbles in the tank, see how they pop? Every time they do, they release more energy into a truck going 1,000 miles an hour. Once I got that, everything else fit together, just as it had during my dreams. God, I thought those dreams were just mostly disorienting moments of my life. I couldn't imagine such things could be real, but now I know they are. They're just on the other side of the bridge, and they're nothing to fear. Eric's fingers caressed the trigger with a loving warmth that had been absent toward the end of our relationship. And here, he commented, brushing his free hand along a bundle of cables as thick as my thigh until he reached a set of what looked like black glass tubes arranged around a circumference of red metal globes. Here's where the magic happens. My mind was reeling. The situation itself was enough to break me. I was seeing the man that I loved since he was a boy who had gotten lost somewhere, somehow. What had done it? What was the turning point when I said, no more? Surely that person with a gun in front of me wasn't the same person who brought me wildflowers 20 years earlier. Surely it was someone else. Eric's eyes gleamed with rapt intensity. I knew those eyes. Same eyes that I had stared into mine on the night of his fever and it reached 105 degrees. The same eyes I'd watched dull every night for years and years. The same eyes that were flat and colorless on the morning I left. But the color was back now. Bright blue, piercing, but not full of life. Definitely not. Not life. But it wasn't death either. Eric's eyes were filled with something else, something alien and horrifying, something anti-life. Alex, I didn't invite you here to talk me out of anything. There's nothing that you can do. No, I had you come so I could show you how I made something of myself in your absence, to show you I could be someone that you could be proud of. Hot tears carved slow paths down my cheeks. How was I supposed to answer that? I could never be proud of someone who didn't think their life was worth living. Eric watched me cry with curiosity. Didn't you see it? Don't you feel it around us? The hum, the static, the hair on your arm standing on end. This is the entrance, Alex. The bridge is just on the other side. It It feels us. It knows we're here. It's why you saw what you did when I turned the gun in your direction. And with that, the gun was in my face again. The deafening hum returned, alternating prickles of heat and cold sweeping up and down my spine, and I saw a solid black circle in the distance. Just a dot. It was up against the far wall beyond Eric, a cluster of machines. I know you see it, Eric said. He walked closer to me, put the barrel of the gun to my temple. Don't look away. Watch it. Gaze into it. A new rush of tears blurred the world around me, but I obeyed. I studied the dot as it grew larger and more prominent in my vision. It started off solid black, entirely black, impossibly black, but the longer I watched, I noticed it changing. Deforming, it bubbled and rolled, dim light within, casting illuminations inside the shape, and something was moving in it. It's enough, I whispered. I see it. Not yet, Eric responded. He pushed the cold barrel hard against my forehead, and the blackness swept across the room, now 8 feet all around and hovered in front of me. Eric was enveloped in the swirling chaos, but he didn't seem affected. It was as if you were ignoring him, or it. I don't think it mattered. The black shifted to gray, then white, then red. Red as the sphere, then which all that generated energy was pouring. I stopped weeping. Eric noticed. There it is, Alex. I've watched it for days. It just waits. It's ready whenever you are. An aperture in the redness opened. Beyond it was a path of stone winding through an endless sea of stars. The path twisted and swirled up and around and through the starscape in an intestinal tangle that caused my stomach to lurch with vertigo. The bridge. It's ready for you. He paused, letting out a slight bit of pressure off my forehead. The bridge dimmed. Are you ready for it? I found myself leaning my forehead toward the barrel of the gun. The image sharpened. Innumerable stars bloomed along the twisted path of the bridge. I squinted to see what lay beyond, to see what was being bridged, and all I saw was a pinprick of red light, harsh and caustic and searing. I can let you cross if you like. I promise I'll be right behind you. The redness at the end of the bridge swirled. The electric hum was now an ocean of white noise, waves on a starry beach. Just nod, Alex. We can go. This is where we're meant to be. All we do while we're here is suffer. Let's go be happy together. I thought of my life. I thought of my parents and my friends and my dog. Was I suffering? Who were they? Were we just biding our time? No, I murmured. The redness faded as I leaned my head away from the gun. No. Eric pulled the gun away and placed it back against the side of his head. The vision evaporated and I was left with just him and the room and the machines. Yeah, and what are you gonna tell everyone? Eric asked. His eyes weren't on mine, they were watching another point in space, and now I knew what it was. I'll tell them exactly what happened, I replied, that you were depressed and you killed yourself. Yeah, but what about all this? He inquired, gesturing at something I could no longer see. Won't they want to know about it? Wouldn't they prefer to be there? Maybe. But in their own time. And that's when he pulled the trigger. The left side of his head exploded outward, showering the walls and floor with blood, bone, brain. His knees buckled and he fell. A tiny arc of electricity flickered along the black glass spires surrounding the red globe. And I felt cold and numb. And I wiped the spattered blood from my face. I'm sorry, I whispered. And I'm not sure why. That was A Star Bridge by Unsettling Stories. Okay, so Vincent Venicava, who's a writer, everybody knows Vincent Venicava. Yeah, he wrote this new story. It's about Momo. You guys know the Momo meme and things like that. Yeah, it just went up on the channel last week. It's super cool. He's back over there also at like the booth where there's the CDs and prints and a whole bunch of cool stuff. And he has a book that I still love, and I keep telling him this, but it's no longer in print. It's called Decomposing Head. And he has a story in there that is one of my favorite stories to be able to tell at cons. So the one time when I was like, yeah, I'm going to tell you all new things, I lied. Here's one that I absolutely love. It's called The Thoughts of a Modest Murderer. She's making her way to the bathroom. It won't be long now before I have my first kill. Oh, this is so exciting. Okay. Just like I planned, I stand here in the shower with my knife ready and drawn, and when she pulls back the curtains, well, it'll be curtains for her. I made a funny. Oh, here she is. I'm just gonna take a little peek so I can get into the perfect position to pounce, and oh, well, isn't this a treat? She's undressing in front of me. Yes, darling. Daddy likes. Slide out of those jeans, why don't you? Oh, look at that bottom. It's a very sexy rump, if I do say so myself. Gonna enjoy running the knife through you, honey. Okay, time to get ready. She's approaching the shower now. Here she comes. She's sitting on the toilet. I mean, I wish I could give her some privacy, but this is kind of a unique situation. I mean, I guess everything will be fine just as long as... Oh, God. Is she taking a... She is. I'm afraid this is terribly embarrassing. Lord, it stinks in here. I honestly didn't know the human body was capable of creating a stench so foul. Oh, what the hell did she have for lunch today? Smells like 3-week-old cat food that's been left out in a dumpster behind a sushi restaurant. I could taste it. Oh, Jesus, why can I taste it? How about a courtesy flush, darling? What do you live in a barn? Oh, never mind that. Even barn animals would be offended by that putrid concoction you're brewing inside that pungent porcelain pot you're sitting on. Oh, God. She's picking her nose now. Oh, that's it. This woman's lost all sex appeal as far as I'm concerned. Oh, Christ. She's really digging deep, isn't she? What the hell is she trying to do? Scratch her brain? No. Don't you do it. Don't you eat that booger, young lady. Oh, she ate it. Unbelievable. Okay, stiff upper lip. You can get through this. Sure, things haven't gone exactly as expected, but that doesn't mean this can't be a successful outing. She appears to be finishing up anyway. Straighten up. Wipe the tears from your eyes. Get back in a position. You don't want a nickname like the blubbering butcher or the crybaby killer, do you? That's not scary. Of course, she wipes back to front. Nothing surprises me anymore. Oh, wait, where's she going? No, don't go. I think you might need to take a shower after dropping that bomb, Crapperella. You aren't clean. Oh, at least wash your hands. Thank you guys so much for coming to CreepyPasta Storytime. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's Myuuji, one more time for him, guys, because he is incredibly talented and really far. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. If you guys are interested in anything, we're going to be over there at those booths in just a second, and we got a whole bunch of cool stuff and things like that. And yeah, that's it. Yeah!